All right, and we're live. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Wow, I tripped over my own tongue there for a second. It happens from time to time. Today, I am talking with Tim of the New Stoics. I have a link to the New Stoic channel down below in the description, and I also have a link to both of Tim's Twitter accounts, which is the New Stoics and New Stoic Tim. So you can follow him also on Twitter. And just so you guys know, Tim's got some kids in the background, so there might be the odd scream because they're watching the Disney movie Atlantis, which is actually a pretty good one. So, Tim, basically what I do here on the show is I talk to people about their deconversion stories. So, kind of what I like to have happen sort of is we go through the whole the journey of, when you first sort of had doubts and kind of what led you into becoming an atheist activist, and ups and downs that in between and all that stuff. So I'll let you start with your story there. I might get a little choppy, sorry.
No, it's fine. Before I was an atheist, I was a Mormon actually, and
oh wow,
yeah, I left the church when I was 19, and okay. So I was the word that Mormons use for a really good member, for everybody who goes to church and all that kind of stuff, is a Peter priesthood.
Okay.
And so I was a pretty devout member. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do anything. I mean, my little vice was swearing. That was my little thing that I kind of relieved.
No.
But it was something I could get a little stress out from time to time.
Sure.
But the thing about it is, probably around 16 and 17, I had a lot of friends who were Christians. I grew up in an area that wasn't predominantly Mormon, so there was a lot of people who heard that I was a Mormon, and they would say, "Hey, your religion's full of crap." And the Mormons have this built-in defense mechanism where anytime there's any kind of criticism, whether it's good or bad, they just say, "Oh, that's anti-Mormon rhetoric."
Yeah.
And basically, I just accepted that for a long time until I realized, I started looking into it, and I started realizing that the Joseph Smith story never really made sense. It never made sense. And once I started reading accounts from ex-Mormons, I started to realize, wait, there's something wrong. Something doesn't make any sense. And one of the things that always really confounded me was, Mormons have this idea of God that's different from other Christians, that God is three separate beings, not like, one part of the, Triforce or whatever you want to call it.
Triforce. Well, he is omnipresent, so he could be a billion beings for all we know.
So Mormons have this like really weird view that God was a human being at one point, and that we could all be like God someday, if we're good enough, which I guess is, that's a real nice virtuous way of thinking, like, hey man, if I'm really good, I could be just like God. And the idea is that Jesus once lived on Earth, on another planet like Earth, and God the Father was the Father above him, and basically their answer to infinite regress of gods is there was another God behind him, there was another God behind him, there was another God behind him. But the thing is, it doesn't make any sense if you read the Bible, because the Bible's not talking about God like there's more than one God. They're talking about their God is that's the main God. They may talk about like lesser gods, but they when they talk about their God, that's the God. And so Mormons compiled this version of the Bible called the Joseph Smith translation, where Joseph Smith goes in and changes the Bible to make it fit the Mormon outlook. Yeah,
isn't that what all denominations do? Is they kind of just tinker with shit so that
this is even more than that, Neil, because they actually go through and they'll change all the pronouns to plural pronouns to refer. Every time they say God, they say God, God's, or God the Father, and they'll refer to. But once I started looking into it, I read that Elohim, the word Elohim, and the word Jehovah has the same root. It's the same thing. It's a mistranslation or something like that, so it didn't make any sense. So I was like, what the hell? Like, why are they going through? This doesn't make any sense. No other Christian says this. That doesn't make any sense. And so I started just keep looking into it, and I'm just kind of like, man, this whole thing is just a bunch of bullshit. And not to mention the Book of Mormon and everything. Like I mean, even when I talk to real educated Christians and they said, like you just weren't a good Christian, and you just left atheism because you just left Christianity because you didn't learn enough. I'm like, man, I was a Mormon. And then they're like, oh yeah, I understand. I understand why you're an atheist. Because that would kind of alter my mind view quite a bit too. But
actually, purple rhymes with orange just made a little comment in the comment section that it was kind of struck me as a little bit funny here. He said, so Mormons are polytheists? That's news to me, right? So I guess technically you would be.
Yeah, they don't sell that though.
Okay.
They're
okay, we're not buying it.
But lately they're they've been trying to push this that they're just like a normal Christian church, just like everybody else, and Christian values, family values, all this kind of stuff.
Magic underwear.
Yeah, magic underwear. Yeah. Well, so I was questioning for a long time, and I was saying, man, how am I gonna? I was thinking about it a long time, I almost think the best analogy is like, somebody who's gay trying to come out of closet, just thinking about the best way to do it, how to approach my parents, because
sure,
my parents were not just members, or they weren't just kind of members. My dad was the leader, they call it the bishop at the church at the time.
Wow. And
I was the bishop's son. I was the little goody two shoes that never had any fun, and so I was thinking about it for years, and I was actually thinking, maybe I could just fake it. Maybe I could just fake it, and I got to do. Oh, yeah. It was really hard because I just couldn't live with myself. In fact, there was this one song. It was by a band called Hoobastank.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if it was Hoobastank or it's like one of those kind of like alternative bands at the time. But it was a song called "I'm Living a Lie," and that song kept playing a lot. And I was actually 19, and I was ready to go on a mission. I got all my paperwork. I got my visa. I was ready to go.
I just had a flashback to Blues Brothers from God.
Yeah, exactly. Except less fun.
Yeah, no car chases in malls.
Yeah, and no fun music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard that song when I was getting ready, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to tell somebody. I need to get this off my chest. I can't lie to anybody about this because I just I am not a Mormon. Like
Yeah.
how could I believe this stuff? This stuff doesn't make any sense. Like
I ask myself that every day, how people can still believe this shit.
I don't know. You know, like I really wish I did, because I've tried to have honest discussions with my parents about this recently, and it just does not. It really doesn't happen. It just dies right off the bat, because they think like just even discussing it could impact their eternal life. You know, and I'm just like, man, what kind of God is that? You know, you can't even discuss something like that. But no, it was a tough thing for me. So I just kind of made up my mind. I said, you know, I gotta leave. You know, and I gotta leave in probably the worst way. I gotta peel that duct tape off. You know, even if it takes all my hair.
That's okay. Hair grows back.
And it did. But it was I still remember the day, because it was we were planning on returning some books on Brazil that was going to show me a little bit about the country and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, before we do that, I just need to talk to you. You know, I said, I'm not going on a mission, and I don't believe the church is true. You know, which to a Mormon is like the most
like heinous thing.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst thing that you could ever say. And it was with my parents there. Nobody else was there, and I come from a big family, so I guess that was good. But I talked to I said that to both my parents, and basically they said the first thing that my mom said was I was going to hell, and that I wasn't going to be with them in the afterlife, and I wasn't going to.
It always strikes me as funny when, especially someone like a family member says something like that to you, because they don't understand that is really like, if you're a believer, that's like one of the worst things you can say to somebody.
Yeah, but if you're not, it doesn't really hit you as
Water
hard.
off a duck's back, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, at the time it didn't really hurt me either, because I was like, nah, I don't even know what the hell that is anymore. You know, like I was like, I'm going to hell, but I don't know what hell is. You know,
bring
like
in marshmallows.
Yeah, and they said, if and they said, they tried to plead with me to go back on a mission and all this kind of stuff, and I said, no, I'm not going to do it. My mom threw me out of the house.
Wow.
I just left. I started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I was gracious that my father did get in the car and pick me up eventually, and then had the most awkward dinner after that. Where my mom made me ramen noodles, and we kind of realized that even if I wasn't a member, we still are family, and we're still love each other. And
not everyone ends up like that, right? So
no, and I was lucky, because sometimes Mormons can be really harsh about people leaving the church. I'm very grateful that I wasn't raised a Jehovah's Witness or another fundamentalist kind of religion, because I've heard a disfellowshipment can be really bad. But Mormons play the long game. They play the nice guy long game. So they'll just have little offenses here and there. Out of nowhere they won't talk anything about church, and then out of nowhere they're taking you in their van and they're having a nice long conversation about their experiences in Africa and why you should convert to the church because it's the one true religion. But
right. Of course it is.
yeah. So
isn't that what everybody said?
Yeah. you know, my once I realized I was an atheist came later. It was after I went to a lot of churches. I started researching a lot of religions, and I didn't really believe in any of them, you know, and I didn't really understand. The one thing that was really hard for me to understand was the idea of the Trinity, and you know, I didn't really like Islam so much. I didn't really like a lot of religions, and I just realized, yeah, I might as well just say I don't really believe in God until I do, I guess. So I just kind of went with the atheist label, and I didn't really know what that meant, to be honest. It's not like I went online and, you know, did that. I was just an atheist, you know, that's all it was, you know. And I mean, it was, I might have used it as like an edgy label when I was in college, you know. Oh, I'm an atheist, you know. And I had roommates who were Christian, and, you know, to be honest with you, if you ask me any kind of like really deep philosophical questions at the time, I wouldn't be able to tell you nothing, you know. Like a really good theist apologist would probably destroy me with a lot of you know, arguments. But I've developed my understanding quite a bit, and so yeah, I leaving Mormonism's tough, because Mormonism's like this big happy family, you know. Or the, you know, well, it kind of is. I would say it has this fake veneer to it, you know. It feels fake, but there is a lot of genuinely really nice people who are Mormons, and they you know, they genuinely are just. But the question that I always ask them is, would you, if you didn't have Mormonism, would you still be this nice, friendly person? They say, oh no, you know, we
Wow,
we
really?
want to.
That's what they say? Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Most of them do say that. Yeah, because it's a lot like a lot of Christian religions, where, you know, a lot of times people only do what they do is based on the reward. You know,
Yeah.
they want to go to heaven, and Mormons are like the pyramid scheme of Christians, I would say, because the reward is a lot bigger than most Christians. Most Christians just say, oh, the paradise or heaven or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Mormons say, okay, I'll tell you what. Hey, you like heaven, right? Okay, we have 3 tiers of heaven. Okay, and at the top tier, we have 3 tiers to that. Okay, so if you want to get into the highest tier of heaven, you know, a donation to the church here and there, that's pretty good. And then, you know, seeing the bishop every month with your current temple recommend, which you have to pay for, that really helps too, you know. And then paying your tithing at the end of the month, that's really important. And it's such a huge financial organization, and everybody involved in the church, running the church, I should say, has a lot of money and influence. They're very wealthy, well-to-do people, and
tithing.
Yeah,
right.
And they'll actually point to the success of the church based on how much money the church makes or invests in, or, you know, something to that effect. And I'm just kind of like, I don't understand how the financial well-being of the church has anything to do with whether or not it's true or not.
Yeah.
But
it
yeah,
doesn't, by the way.
Yeah,
like, it has no bearing at all. So.
Yeah, but it was kind of like this big happy family, or it had this appearance of that. I mean, there's a lot of ex Mormons who became atheists. I think Mr. Atheist is one, and there's quite a few others. And I think it's just because it's blatantly obvious to Mormons that it's not true. and then you kind of go to an extreme position that if your position isn't true, you hold the same kind of skeptical position towards almost every religion afterwards. You don't see a lot of Mormons. You don't see a lot of Mormons be Catholic after they leave. You don't see. You do see a lot of Mormons become like evangelical Christians, but I would say quite a few just turn into atheists. It's just because it's just blatantly obvious. It's just not true. It's like it literally can't be true. Like it's almost like to a logical certainty that Mormonism absolutely can't be true. Mm-hmm. Like it just can't.
Well, I mean, wasn't a lot of the shit that like the golden plates, that was all debunked anyways, because it didn't even match any of the, once they found the Rosetta Stone, none of the languages matched that he claimed were specific languages, right? So
yeah, his translation of Reformed Egyptian that wasn't even a language was obviously not even true, and it's that was one of the hardest things, is looking at all that stuff and just seeing that, and then looking at Mormon apologists, which must be that must be the toughest job that you could have in the entire world, being an apologist for the Mormons, because it's like,
yeah, I would agree,
because you know, a lot of these religions, you have time on your hand, you have time to kind of help you, because like with the Catholics, they have thousands of years of history, right? So they could say, well, it was a long time ago. People don't know. We don't have you don't know that Jesus didn't do blah 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 blah. So let's just assume he did and go off of these kind of accounts. But with Mormonism, there was people around. There was people taking pictures. There was people writing down everything, and we actually have all the artifacts. And so we know it's BS. Like it's kind of like Mormonism was the framework of Scientology almost.
So you say that it was fake or made up or whatever. So how come there's still so many? I mean,
it's a good support system. It's a really good community-based religion in and of itself. I would say if you took the BS out of Mormonism and you just said, instead of basing it around any kind of theistic ideas, and you just say, oh, this is just for X community, it's actually really nice. You have potlucks, you can meet people. It's telling you to, just to be a good person, don't drink, don't smoke, do all these kind of things. It actually says some things that are relatively true, I would say, or not necessarily true, but could lead to a healthy, happy lifestyle if you follow them. But they don't give you any kind of alternatives. And the other thing that's just terrible about it is, I mean, just the way that they treat the LGBT community is just horrible. They just blatantly will tell gay men and women that they just have to be celibate for the rest of their lives.
Oh, it's fucking brutal.
And I'm just kind of like, how can you expect somebody to go through that? I mean, you see the terrible things that Catholic priests do, and who are just gay, or you see what it could drive people to do to repress your sexuality, and you're telling men to do that. You're telling men and women to do that. It's the most terrible thing. And the other thing I really don't like is just the way that they'll just kind of cover up like sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And with the Mormon church, it's not so much with priests and boys. It's actually more to do with bishops and girls. And they're not usually younger girls, but and I won't say it's like the most common, but it does happen. I mean, you could definitely find that there's people who who've had these abusive situations. But I mean, at the heart of it, ideally, what Mormons are selling you is, you take away all the religious stuff. I mean, the theistic stuff. What they're selling you is a happy, interconnected community.
Mm-hmm.
That you not only that, but let's say you're a young man and you want to get into the business world, right? You want to be successful. You want to meet the local business leaders. You get into Mormonism, you might have the mayor of the town in your church. You might have, you might have city council members. You might have local businessmen, and they're almost obligated to hire other Mormons because of pressure from the church. Mm-hmm. So there's an economic benefit to joining Mormonism as well.
Sure.
I've gotten jobs because I was a Mormon, because the boss was a Mormon. I've had that happen several times.
I think the most interesting guy that I ever worked for was a JW, and he didn't really like me very much because he knew I was atheist. But he still signed my paychecks. We never spoke. Like, he would speak with all the other painters and stuff like that. That's way back when I was into restoration and stuff. But he wouldn't talk to me like at all unless he was telling me I had to go do something. So yeah, it was great.
You were literally the devil. So
the looks that he would give me were just too funny.
Oh yeah, some of the Watchtower books.
No, looks, not books. He wouldn't even bother giving me a book. He never tried to save me or anything. He just thought I was just evil incarnate. And I'm like, really? Is that right? Well, because I save lives, so fuck you, asshole.
Yeah, but it's selling you an actual beneficial situation, I would say. I mean, especially if you hold conservative views, right? Mormons have a lot of influence in the Republican Party, and it's like, it's a ridiculous ratio. I think it's like 80% Republican, 20% Democrat, and I think the 20% is not an accurate. It's probably more closer to 90 to 10. So there's that to me is one of the biggest reasons why people stay in the church, even if they realize the inaccuracies of not only the accounts, but of just the grifter feel of Joseph Smith and how he started the religion in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of them will just fall back to be actual just Christians, and they'll just just actually leave. Yeah, they'll actually just because I mean it's just because people read the Book of Mormon, but I mean, it's like, here's the funny thing about the Book of Mormon. Okay, I mean, you know a little bit about the King James version of the Bible,
dude. I have almost every religious book you can find on my bookshelf. So, as for referencing, right?
Yeah.
Even have a great big book about world religions and all the stuff that they follow, right? So, I'm well versed in religious belief.
So, the King James Bible is the Bible that they follow, right? And it was the Bible that Joseph Smith had on hand when he was starting Mormonism. And when he found the golden plates, and I'm putting air quotes there, when he found the golden plates and he translated it to English, somehow the style of the Book of Mormon almost took the same tone as the King James Bible exactly. And in fact, there was entire sections of the King James Bible translated exactly the same from one book to the other, because in the book, one of the characters, Nephi, was quoting Isaiah. And when he was quoting Isaiah, it was in the exact same style as Isaiah in the King James Bible. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No, you're right. It doesn't. And it's funny. I was talking to someone about a Christian actually about the King James version, and as far as I know, King James was gay, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
So God was retranslating the word of God through a gay guy, right? like what the, and you guys buy this crap?
Well, most Christians actually will just look at it. I mean, most reasonable Christians I've spoken to will just look at it as like a literary. It's like they use really flowery language, but they don't take it seriously. They don't say, no, that's not a good way to go. But for the Mormons, that's their book, And so like when Mormons pray, they pray in the same kind of they, thou kind of way, unto thee and thou, and they'll use those kind of words in their diction whenever they refer to God, because that's how they refer to God in the King James Bible. So it's just a lot of funny things that if they just thought about it for maybe an hour, they would realize this doesn't make any sense. Like why would a quote unquote Israelite on his way to America speak in the same kind of flowery way as the way it's written in the King James Bible in what was it, 15th century England? Why would it? Yeah. Why would it be spoken in that kind of way? That doesn't make sense. People didn't talk that way in the 1800s. People didn't talk that way during the Israelites' times. So
nope.
I don't know. You point these kind of things out, and they'll just kind of, they'll just go straight to the faith thing, and I'm just like, whoa.
You got to use the phrase I always use all the time. But it's called faith because it's not knowledge. Okay, so and that's not my quote. A friend of mine thought that was a quote that I made up, and I'm like, no. I ripped that right out of Christopher Hitchens' pocket. It's a Hitchens quote. I got a question for you.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. Am I okay? Okay. What did you think about the South Park Mormon episode?
It actually put up the one of the biggest issues with Mormonism in the funniest way possible, and most friends, what's that picture? There's like this picture of this like really angry guy wearing a mask, like a meme. It's a meme. It looks, he's wearing a mask of being really happy, but he's actually furious. That was Mormons during that episode. They're all like, "Oh yeah, that episode was so funny." It's not true though, but it was so funny. I'm like, well, actually, that literally happened. That like we really don't know if I think it was Martin Harris and his wife had that conversation. But anything could have happened. Let's say he actually did lose that. It doesn't really matter. It's like if he really was the prophet, getting his words directly from God, he should have been able to do it word for word, right? But he didn't, and he had to come up with a totally new story. I almost want to hear the original story. I bet you it was it probably was a lot. It was a lot more obvious it was a fake in the first place, because I mean he was illiterate, man. Like pretty much the only thing that he read or read from was the Bible. So like he had a really weird viewpoint, you know. But no, I mean, South Park hit it so well that I was just like, yeah.
That it became a Broadway stage show. So
yeah, the Book of Mormon. Yeah, that's funny because they actually had the Mormon Church advertising for it, and I'm just like,
are you kidding me?
Yeah, they did. They really did. And it's like in their mind, they think like bad advertising could lead to, you know, a couple converts. I'm like, no, you're gonna lose converts.
It's gonna make people laugh at you more.
Yeah, and I think it's like they feel like if they go along with the good humor, they can just kind of get past any kind of bad press. And I'm like, no, like these are glaring historical inaccuracies, and you really need to address them. And if you don't, I mean, look at all the issues that happened with the Catholic Church several times throughout the millennia. I mean, it's split up, it changed. You know, that's why there's thousands of Christian churches right now, and it's and so Mormons say, well, we haven't split yet. I'm like, you guys have already split so many times, you know, like you there's still Mormons saying that they're the true Mormons from, you know, Joseph Smith's times. And I'm just kind of like, man, this is just ridiculous.
Well, you know, a friend of mine made a very valid point to me one time. This is years back. He says, you know, the reason why people are so splintered on everything is because everyone's got their own idea of how, you know, of their beliefs, of what's right and wrong, or what, you know, all kinds of things. Everyone has their own beliefs. And even if you annihilated the entire population of Earth and we're left with 2 people on the planet, there would still be 2 opposing opinions at some point. So no one would ever, even if 2 people were left, agree on everything. So that's why religion splinters. And I always say the funny thing is if God was really real, there would be no question. There wouldn't be splintered religious groups. There would be one world religion and one holy book that no matter who picked it up would be able to read it in whatever language they spoke, because he's omnipotent and he has the power to do that. So, or allegedly. But since none of that's happened, what do you think the odds are that this deity even exists?
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like that was one of the things that drove me to atheism. Is I started thinking back to all my spiritual like events that took place in my life, or that I thought took place in my life, could totally be explained by natural ways, and my reaction to those could always just be euphoric sense to beauty and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what euphoria was. I didn't know just how my brain processes seeing things that are beautiful. And
there's a guy here in Vancouver in a lab that a friend of mine told me about. He says he can hook up a little sort of thing that you put on your head, and then he puts this magnet around it. He can stimulate that euphoria for you if you want, anytime.
That's crazy.
I know, right? Crazy. Well, you can also shut off your speech center. So I don't know if I trust you.
Yeah, well, let's hope he's not running the government anytime soon.
I don't know. Maybe we don't want to hear them talk half the time, so maybe that's a good idea.
But I was the thing that was always the weirdest thing to me is how we always talk about the times in the past of having this times of legends and all these great events, you know, like the flood and Adam and Eve and all this kind of stuff. And once we actually dig into it with archaeology, it's like none of that stuff happens, and it doesn't necessarily happen in the way that everybody says it did, you know. So it's like there's a good chance the Exodus never happened, you know. I mean, I believe Jesus existed, but I don't think he did anything supernatural, and he didn't, you know, he's probably just some weird rabbi who was crucified because he was too out there for the other rabbis. And
Could be.
you know, and I look at a lot of these people. It's like, you know, Muhammad was just a creep, you know, a creep warlord who wanted to take over the world with his religion. You know, that's disturbing to me a little bit, you know.
Oh, sure. So do Christians, though. I mean, that's what the Crusades are all about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny that Christians even bring up the Crusades because it didn't really end well for them, anyways. Jeez, they ended up losing the whole thing. But
many people.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funniest thing in the world is to learn about the Crusades, I think. But yeah, I think it's actually funny to hear how the Mormons view all that kind of stuff. Because the Mormons,
do you have some insight into that, or?
Well, so the Mormons view all Christian religions to be false. Just they're not even close to be true. And so they said when Jesus started the church, because Jesus started a church, which even though it's not written anywhere, but Jesus started the Mormon church. That's what Mormons believe. There was a conspiracy that happened with the Roman Empire to kill off the president of the church, who was Peter, and the Mormon church died out for until Joseph Smith came and restored the original Christian church. And every church that's existed since then has been the devil, basically.
All run by Satan.
All run by Satan. Yeah.
The whole lot of you, you're a bunch of satanic churches.
Yeah, but I
don't know. I hear they have the best barbecues.
Oh, oh yeah. Well, I just feel I don't know. I thought I would have a natural draw to other Christians after I left the church, and I just the thing that upset me was if I didn't agree with some little thing when I left the church, they were so upset. They're like, "What do you mean you don't know if Jesus is the Savior? What do you mean if you don't?" And then they would just like throw me under the bus right off the bat. I'm just like, man, I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the likelihood of Jesus, the way he's described as being divine or whatever, is probably pretty much next to none. Like, there's no fucking way that guy. I'm sorry, but you can't walk on water. You just you can't break the laws of physics, right? I mean, I don't care if there's a God involved, right? I mean, he waves a magic wand and somebody can walk on water, but that just doesn't happen, man. It's not how physics works. Yeah. So, right, that guy probably never existed. But like you said earlier, some extravagant rabbi, maybe. But there's still no real evidence for even that they've come across. So,
well, see, I believe in the whole historical Jesus thing as just a really weird rabbi who was probably trying to live as a cynic and just trying to like, I don't know, because some of this, I'll accept the stories.
Yeah, that's an intellectually honest answer. I don't know.
Yeah, and the main reason I have that mindset is, I don't know. It's a little hard to say that guy absolutely didn't exist, and it doesn't matter if he existed or not. I would say the main thing that I point out with Christians is, okay, he wasn't resurrected. He did not heal the sick. He did not have any divine powers. He did not walk on water. He did not turn water into wine. And they'll all say, okay, what's your evidence of that? I'm like, I don't really need to provide it because there is nobody here who could do that.
Right.
There's nobody here that could demonstrate. So I just reject it outright.
Did it better.
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, it's just,
he turned whole springs into wine. Like, come on, Jesus, you gotta level up here, buddy.
Which was always the thing that upset me the most about Mormons, is because they said that we couldn't drink wine, we couldn't drink alcohol, but I keep reading these things that said Jesus drank wine. And you know what you know what their response to that is, Neil?
What?
Wine was like grape juice. They actually believe that wine was just, it didn't have any alcohol in it. It was really light, and it was just the way to give a little bit of bubbles to the juice. You know.
I gotta tell you, every Passover, I was raised Jewish myself, so every Passover they release a type of wine called Manischewitz wine, and it is literally alcoholic grape juice. That's what it tastes like. The shit's so sweet. I could down a bottle of that stuff because it tastes so good.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're over in the toilet going, because it's absolute. It's all sugar. So
I hate that.
You get fucked right up, right? So
no, I hate that. I hate it. Like you too much sugar with your wine or alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I could see where they come up with that because yeah, sure, it was grape juice, but trust me, it was alcoholic grape juice.
Yeah. I'm just kind of like, you know, people were getting wasted in the Bible all over the place. Like David was getting wasted.
Yeah,
it was Noah.
Like, Noah was a fucking drunk. I mean, come
on. You'd have to be, man. Think about his cruise that he set up. You know.
Oh yeah, he's walking around going, "I got to build fucking what? Screw that, I'm drinking."
Yeah,
I know. But wine was the drink of choice in the day, anyways, right? So, and mead. A lot of people drank mead or some offshoot of beer. I mean, even in the Egyptians, when they uncovered that little area that basically demonstrated that there were no real slaves in Egypt, they were hired by the pharaoh. They were taken care of. It was almost like a draft where if you reached a certain age, you had to go work for the pharaoh. They have not demonstrations, but they have like stills that were in between every like third or fourth house or something that were used for making mead and beer. And so he took care of the people that were building his pyramids, right? So there's no real evidence for slavery. It was all you became a worker for the pharaoh, and your family was taken care of, and you were taken care of, etc., etc. And they found, hieroglyphs that actually backed up that stuff. I can't remember where I fucking saw that, but anyway, just Google it, people.
There was definitely slavery in the ancient days, but it was wasn't that common in ancient Egypt. Like,
no.
I mean, even in if you get into history books nowadays, I mean, it still talks about the Jews being slaves in Egypt, and there's really no evidence of that.
No,
and they weren't. Yeah, it's like you said, they weren't mistreated at all.
They were taken care of.
Yeah.
They even found what looked to be like one of the buildings there, what looked to be like an ancient form of a care facility, like a hospital kind of thing, where they found evidences of like tinctures and shit that they made to help with like headaches or fatigue and shit like that, right? So that people could keep working. Yeah, I'm not going to say he was a nice guy. He was probably fairly, I mean, these guys worked some pretty long shifts from what I remember from the documentary that I watched, but he did take care of them. He clothed them, fed them, and he gave them the ability to make their own alcohol and stuff like that. So he basically took care of them.
I mean, not to say the guy wasn't a crazy, egocentric kind of guy. Yeah, at least he cared about the workers, I would say. That would be
sure.
Nice.
Well, if you have healthy workers, they're going to work better. They're going to work faster. Like, why would you put slaves in there who are going to be fucking kicking it off left, right, and center because they're overworked, right? That just doesn't make any sense. Well, you want people that are happy, fed, clothed, and taken care of. Those are the guys that are going to be like, this guy's awesome. I'm going to build this fucking pyramid.
Right? Well, I don't know. You give enough guys enough beer, any of these kind of jobs comes. Exactly. But yeah.
What can I say?
So you're out in BC, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so I was living in Seattle quite a while before I recently moved to Florida.
We were
And
almost neighbors.
almost. I went up to BC a few times. Real pretty area.
That's
Um,
great.
I keep people would always ask me what's Vancouver like, and I said, well,
Depends
it's a
on the time of year.
yeah, but I would always say it's a cleaner, better Seattle because
I
they
don't know,
actually
dude. Seattle's pretty clean these days. I've been down. I
kind
go
of
down quite a bit. I
it's
love Seattle.
I like Seattle too, but it's got some problems. I wish they had the mass transit system that Vancouver has because
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
true.
it's a million times better. But I mean, the food's great. There's a lot of fun things to do in Seattle. The
Oh
music
yeah.
scene's great out there.
Oh,
You know, and
it was huge in
uh,
the '90s.
oh yeah, good. Yeah, that was. People tell me, oh, that was Seattle's Renaissance. I'm like,
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I
yeah.
got to tell you, dude, back in, I think it was 1990, I had tickets to see Alice in Chains at one of the clubs we have here that's no longer around. And
Wow.
on the bill, this was probably in 1990 or 91, I think. And on the bill, it said Alice in Chains with Mother Love Bone, which was the old Andrew Wood band
Oh,
that
okay.
had all the guys that eventually became Pearl Jam. Um,
Mm-hmm.
now, a couple of months before that show happened, Andrew Wood died of a heroin overdose. So they
Mm.
had this new singer. And I'm at the show and I'm like, yeah, I heard that the Mother Love Bone's not here, that some other band called Mookie Blaylock is playing. Right. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, ah, shitty, because I really wanted to see, I love Mother Love Bone. So I wanted to see them. And I'm sitting on the stairs at this club there. And this guy comes up the stairs and he sits next to me. He goes, yeah. So, what do you think of this Mud Love guys? Like, oh yeah, they were pretty good, but I was kind of hoping to see, or this Mookie Blaylock guy. So I was like, oh, they were pretty good, but I was kind of hoping to see Mud Love. He goes, well, most of them were the band members from that. It turns out, and I started shooting the shit with the guy. I already smoked a doobie and had a couple beers, so I was already a little bit out of it. And I'm like, dude, can I buy you a beer? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I went and I bought him a beer, and I sat back down on the stairs with him. And it turns out it was Eddie Vedder.
Are you kidding me?
Shooting shit with Eddie Vedder as Alice in Chains was playing, because this is already after he'd been on stage. And fuck, I didn't put two and two together that he was the guy I was just watching singing. Like, it was hilarious. Right? And I realized it later because my buddy comes after me and goes, you know that was the singer of the first band. I'm like, okay. And they were nobody at the time until they changed the name to Pearl Jam. And by the way, guys, the album 10 is actually named after Mookie Blaylock's jersey number, just so you know.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's why. It's not because it has 10 songs on the album like many people think. It was actually named after Mookie Blaylock's jersey number. He was a basketball player, if you don't know. So, yeah, so I bought Eddie Vedder a beer. Yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. So
yeah, he kind of shows up around Seattle here and there. I mean, when I was in Seattle, Cornell passed away, and the whole city was, man, it was just sad. I mean, because he was like, if the city had a guy to just explain why Seattle's cool, they would always point to Chris Cornell because I mean, just his amazing talent, and I would say during the 90s he had kind of like, just this amazing voice. Even when he was with Audio Slave, it was just amazing to hear him belt out he could hit any note.
Pretty much.
And when he passed away, you could just feel it in the city because everybody loved him.
Yeah.
And he was.
We had a big. We went out to the Point that we call here, which is a pier on the river. And we cracked a bunch of beers and played Soundgarden and Audio Slave tunes till the night ended. And what's really cool about it is right when we started playing the songs, this giant, I know there's nothing behind all of this, it's just coincidental, but an eagle landed on a tree right there, which was really, it's like, all right, yeah, because we're in Canada, and of course, the eagle being the symbol of the U.S., right? So it was just this fucking gorgeous bald eagle right when we started playing. I think it was Louder Than Loud Love or something we were playing, and he landed right in the fucking tree there. I was like, yeah, hey Chris, like cheers to you for all the shit. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, but it was a good time, and I really liked Seattle. I had to move because it was getting too damn expensive. I had to move all the way to I had to move to the south, and oh gosh, I don't know if I like it here.
You got to put up with like hurricanes and shit down there, man. What are you talking about? At least in here, this side of the North America, all you really got to deal with is like rain and some harsh winds once in a while.
Yeah.
The Pacific Northwest, buddy.
Yeah, when I was in Seattle, the only thing that was on everybody's mind, and it always came up as kind of a half joke, was Mount Rainier erupting, and
which will never happen.
No, I mean, it will, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And I keep telling people that
right now.
Yeah, but
I'll say Helen's blue.
Yeah. Well, and when
I still have ash.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah.
But it was, to me, that was always in everybody's mind, because so many people who were living in Seattle weren't from Seattle. They're from places that had like really bad weather, like California, and I shouldn't say California has bad
weather.
Well, I mean, they have earthquakes and they have, monsoons and all that kind of stuff. And Seattle doesn't really have anything. It just has rain. That's it. That's all it is.
Seattle and Vancouver have the Vancouver Island to thank for that. We don't get any of the harsh weather and harsh ocean shit because the island blocks it all.
Pretty much, yeah. But coming to Florida, it's totally different. We recently had Hurricane Michael come in, and I mean, my whole area got just destroyed. And it was like just seeing everything, and it almost created. I don't know. I almost had kind of I don't know how to describe it. Just a feeling of dread, almost, that, man, I could just go at any time at this place. Like,
it's the wrath of God, buddy, because of all the fucking homosexuals,
Yeah. But it was. I don't know. You see people at their lowest lows. You see people lose their homes, and I would. After the hurricane come in, and I was lucky that my house didn't get hit, but many of my friends did, and so I had to go in and give water and all this kind of stuff, and I would work with some churches and other organizations to try and help out around there, and it was bad, but
yeah, well, you got to pick up the pieces and move forward. That's all you can do.
It was probably the first time that I actually just started to step back and say, I've never actually considered a situation that I could just lose everything just because of the forces of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've never had that situation happen to me.
Yeah, it's up here in the Pacific Northwest, we're still waiting for the big one here. So,
yeah, someday. Yeah.
All right. Just so you know, my friend, we are close. We are on the hour now. So, and I generally like to keep these things at about an hour. And you said you're willing to jump into the after party for a little bit, which is awesome.
Sure.
You can meet some of my other crazy friends, and if there's room in my chat group, if you don't mind, I'll add you to the chat group, and you can get to know people a little bit better too, because we have a pretty good community, I think. So,
cool.
Well, Tim, man, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been a pleasure, and I love the fact that we ended up talking about the Seattle music scene for a bit, because I was pretty big into it for a while there. So, thanks everyone for tuning in and hanging out with us. In probably a little under 10 minutes, I'll have the the after party link in my usual suspects group. And if you aren't in my usual suspects group and you want to join us, just shoot me a message on in Twitter there, and I will send you a personal link there. So again, Muddy, thanks for hanging with me today.
And no problem.
Something else I wanted to mention too. I'm going to be on the Heathens podcast. They're going to be interviewing me as well, and I'll be interviewing them at some point in the future. On March 23rd on Atheist Day, and they're doing a 6-hour stream. So they want to have me in there at some point before my chat with, hang on, who the hell am I talking to on 23rd? Oh yeah, the Free Thought Prophets. I was already on their show. So yeah, you can look forward to that. And of course, I don't have anyone scheduled for Monday yet. So if you guys know anyone that wants to slip in on Monday, let me know. But my next conversation will be with Mike Millen on the 13th of March, which will be Wednesday at 4 p.m. Tim, buddy, thanks for jumping in here with me. It's been awesome talking with you. That's one of the reasons I like doing these, is because we get to hear, just how nasty religion can be to some people. And I also get to know you a little bit better too. So I always say it's better to have friends than it is to have enemies, right? So
always.
And you're an awesome guy, buddy. It's been a pleasure, dude. And hopefully maybe someday I can pop in on your channel. By the way, guys, he does have a channel on YouTube. It's in the description box below. And also both of his Twitter accounts are in the description box below. So follow him there. He's criminally undersubbed on his YouTube channel. So please go and sub to him. The kids in the background. Was it Peter Griffin always says? It's nothing better than the sound of laughing children or something. Anyways, we'll jump into an after party soon. So, like I said before, and always I say at the end of these things, I always quote Christopher Hitchens. It's called faith because it's not knowledge. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.